Welcome! You're cooking with Mrs. Salisbury. Today we'll be making my homemade cheese pizza. So first of all, let's start with the dough. I warmed the bowl up with some warm water. I have 1 cup of warm water. Make sure you get down and look at it when it's on the counter so it's right there at the top. And then I always say about the temperature of my finger, 98.6. You don't want to get it too hot, about 130 degrees. You could kill the yeast. So about the same temperature as your finger and you're good. Next, we want 1 package of yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons. I always use just a little bit less than 1 tablespoon. A little bit less than 1 tablespoon, called a scant tablespoon of active dry yeast. So the next thing we'll need is a teaspoon of sugar. Yeast likes the sugar. And we'll need a tablespoon of olive oil. It's a good fat for us. And you'll see it's starting to already bubble because we want to prove that the yeast is working. They call it proofing. I want to prove, and you'll see that's already starting to bubble up here. Next, I have 2 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour is what we normally have on hand. I do like pizza flour. It's higher in gluten. That's why it's stretchy. That's why they can twirl those in the air. So you won't be twirling this in the air because it's all-purpose flour, but it still makes a very good pizza. So we're going to stir this with the spoon. Again, I don't want to wear it, so I'm going to stir it with the spoon until it forms a ball. Don't forget, next we will add our 1 teaspoon of salt. I waited to add it to give the yeast a chance to work. So 1 teaspoon of salt. It's forming a dough, as you see right here. So since it's forming a dough, I'm going to go ahead and take the spoon out, and I will knead it by hand. I have a little bit of extra flour here, and I'll put some on. It'll be a tiny bit sticky. I don't want it to be a stiff dough though. It'll be a fairly soft dough, but I don't want it sticking to my hands. So we'll knead that, make it nice and smooth, and that's really looking nice. So if it starts getting a little too sticky on your hands, you can put a tiny bit more flour in, but you shouldn't put too much more in. I keep bringing it up to the center, just like when I'm making dough, bread dough, or dough for cinnamon rolls. Same. Knead it in the bowl. That way the mess stays right here. Pizza is so fast to make. I know you'll really enjoy making this. Okay, so I'm just going to knead it until it forms a nice ball and it is smooth. So let's look at this. I'd say just a tiny bit longer. Knead it until it's smooth. Keep bringing it up to the center. Bring it up to the center, just like that. And now, totally smooth. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to let it rise in a warm place about 45 minutes until it doubles in bulk. So let's cover it with some plastic wrap. I'm going to set it over here to rise in a warm place. Okay, next we need to talk about our sauce. So with our sauce, with the onion, you see I've already cut into this onion. That's because I have some onion and garlic ready to go, but I do want to show you how to do it. So when you cut down the onion to take the peeling off, I said make sure you cut the end off, and then I want you to hold the knife, the metal, then the handle, that way your hand doesn't rock, and then you're going to come in and just gradually go into the onion, and then you'll make cut marks going down this way, and then it will make a very fast dice for you. I want this minced though, not diced, so we'll have to cut it just a little bit more. So then when we come across the top and do like little thin slices, then here we'll have our onion. I'm going to move that over. Make sure you don't get any on the floor, especially if you have pets. Now I'm just going to do a quick little mince on this. This utility knife works just fine. No reason to go dirty another knife. It works just fine on this. Get that onion peel out. There's a nice dice. Okay, so we're done. I'm just going to scoop that over to the side. Next is for our garlic. So we're going to be taking off the peeling. And with garlic, you can cut the end off. And then you can lay, there's several ways to cut garlic, but you can lay the knife flat, totally flat, and crush it. Then you can, again, grab the knife by the metal, make sure that it is firmly in your hand, and then you can mince it really quickly. You can also use a garlic crusher. That's perfectly fine. But I already have that minced. We're done. So I'd like you to join me over at the stove. Let's make our sauce so we can get ready. Welcome to making our pizza sauce. In this small pan, we'll put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We'll have this turned on about medium. We're going to put in the 2 tablespoons of minced onion and the 1 garlic clove that we minced. Then I have a ½ teaspoon of basil, ½ teaspoon of oregano, ½ teaspoon of parsley, 4 grinds of black pepper, and just a tiny pinch of red pepper flakes. We'll put that in. If you hear that sizzle, I'm going to turn it down to low. We want to cook the onion until it's translucent. So we have this, and we want to cook it until it's translucent. I like to put the herbs in the olive oil because it locks in the flavor, and it's just so good. So we don't want to burn the garlic, and we just want the onions translucent, which won't take too long. Then we're going to add about a ½ teaspoon of white sugar. If you use San Marzano tomatoes, you don't need to because they're sweeter. So I'm just going to put in about ½ teaspoon of white sugar. The onions are already translucent. As you can see, it doesn't take very long. And I'm going to add 15 ounces of tomato sauce. I'm going to put the spoon in front of it to avoid any splatters. And then I have a 1/4 cup of water that I will put in, and that will rinse the can out and give us a tiny bit more sauce. So I'm going to bring this to a boil, and then I will simmer it for about 10 minutes while our dough is rising. And I have one over here that I've been working on earlier because I'm going to make 2 recipes. So I'm going to show you what I already made. I put it in this pan, and you see it's nice and thick. It's beautiful, and it has a lovely fragrance to it. So I already have an extra sauce made because I'm going to make one and freeze it, so I have it ahead of time. We'll see you when we come back, when we have our risen dough and we put it in our pan to bake. Welcome back to making our homemade cheese pizza. So our dough has doubled in bulk. I've just put olive oil on our sheet pan. So I'll put the dough over here. The oven's on 425. It's already warmed up. So we'll set this here. And going to need a tiny bit of flour, so let me get a tiny bit of flour to pat this out. It's a tiny bit sticky, you just put a tiny bit of flour on, and then we can just press it right on out. Just give it a little bit of time to move around the pan. And it just stretches nicely. We'll make an edge going around as we're doing it. So just to give a second. Sometimes it's a little bit thicker in the center, so we'll just bring that right on over. And I go around the edge, and we're almost covering the pan. Now I will let this rise for about 10 to 15 minutes. Normally with bread, I will tell you, yeast bread, always let it rise at least 45 minutes when it's in the bowl, and another 45 minutes when you shape it like in cinnamon rolls or a loaf of bread. You have to let it rise. Pizza, you can push, I say, and I let it rise about 10 to 15 minutes in the pan. Then we need to pre-bake it. So just a second, we'll get this all set. And then we're going to make a nice little edge going around. I'll show you in just a second. Just use your finger and go around, make a nice little edge. You'll have homemade pizza in no time. So the reason we have this edge is to hold our sauce and cheese in. And sometimes as it rises, you may want to adjust it just a tiny bit. You're on the edge. There we go. Let's put a little bit of olive oil on, not an oil slick, just a little bit, and just rub it lightly with our hands. I like to save one, so I have one hand clean. And this will be very good flavor, as well as we'll brown just a tiny bit. We'll pre-bake it so it'll have a nice crispy crust. So I'm going to let this sit for 10 to 15 minutes, then I'll bake it at 425 for 10 minutes. I'll bring it out. I have one. Let me show you. I made an extra one. Okay, so this is baked for 10 minutes. We made our sauce, so it's all ready. So let's pour our sauce on. It's a beautiful sauce with great, great flavor. You can always freeze the sauce. You can make more, as I told you I was going to do, and freeze some. Take the back of the spoon. Let's just spread the sauce around. I always leave an edge. Leave an edge there. We'll put this right over. And then I have 1.5 cups to 2 cups of mozzarella cheese. And I have a 1/2 cup of parmesan, freshly grated parmesan we can use. So here's our 1/2 cup of parmesan. Here's another 1/2 cup. Let's see if we want to, yeah, 1.5 cups works. 1.5 cups. I don't want too much, but 1.5 cups is nice. Here's 1.5 cups. You can freeze grated cheese. Now, micro-zest planer, the fastest way to zest lemon, limes, oranges, as well as so fast to grate cheese, but they're very sharp. But here's lovely fresh parmesan, and we'll have 1/2 cup of that I'll sprinkle over the top, which will give us kind of a layered flavor, which will be very, very good. There you go. That's it. Still a bit warm. So now I need to put it back in the oven at 425, bake it about 10 more minutes, check, see when it's bubbly, and then we'll be back to show you the end product. Welcome back. Here's our homemade cheese pizza. I baked it for about 11 minutes. You see it's just a nice golden brown. Isn't it beautiful? So I'm going to go ahead and cut it with our pizza cutter, and we'll serve it up. And that fast you can have pizza. So Sometimes it doesn't cut right through the edge here. How about that? Your own pizza. Enjoy.